Have you ever noticed how people admire the quiet ones? They call you mysterious, calm, observant. They say they wish they could be as composed as you, as if silence were a superpower you earned through discipline, wisdom, or some monk-like restraint. But you know the truth, don't you? Your silence isn't calm. It's armor. A survival reflex shaped in the dark long before you had language for danger. People praise what they see. They never see what it costs you, because silence became your safest language. Not chosen, but conditioned. Built in this small, invisible moment when you learn that speaking even a little carried a price your nervous system couldn't afford. Here's the paradox you live with. You crave connection, yet the instinct that protected you as a child now cuts you off from the very closeness you long for. You're fluent in holding back. You're fluent in disappearing. You are fluent in not needing anything, and you know exactly how it feels. You know how it feels when your throat tightens. The moment you try to express something real, when your body floods with heat, or goes cold, or simply shuts down before a single word escapes. When you rehearse entire conversations in your mind, but say nothing when the moment arrives. When you listen so deeply and so intensely that people feel understood by you, but you walk away feeling like a ghost in your own life. When people tell you you're so easy to be around, but you feel like you're performing a self-made stillness that takes more energy than anyone realizes. When conflict makes your chest collapse inward, like the air is being vacuum sealed out of you. When you'd rather take the blame than take up space. You're not shy. You're not low maintenance. You're not mysterious. You're trained. Somewhere in your past, you learned to read the room before you learned to read your own emotions. You knew that quiet meant safety. Stillness meant survival, and disappearing emotionally or verbally kept the peace, even when it fractured something inside you. So you became the child who swallowed their voice before anyone had the chance to crush it. A child who learned that needs create risk. And now, as an adult, silence is the script your nervous system still trusts more than any words you could speak. Here's the archetype underneath all of this. The silent protector, the one who carries the burden of emotional safety on their own shoulders. The one who believes that revealing too much will destabilize the room. The one who thinks, if I stay quiet, maybe the storm won't find me. The one who learned to be the still point in a chaotic home that never taught them how to feel safe while being seen. This is about you, about the fire you learned to contain, about the voice you buried so deeply it began speaking only through tension, symptoms, and silence. Let's walk back into the rooms where you first learned this language. Not to blame, but to understand, because silence can protect you, but it can also swallow you whole. The nervous system that learned to whisper silence isn't a personality trait. It's a blueprint etched into the body. Before you had thoughts, you had sensations. Before you had words, you had reactions. And long before you understood the behavior of adults, your nervous system was already tracking patterns, mapping danger, and building rules. Rules like, stay small, stay quiet, stay out of the way, don't draw heat toward you. This is where the silent protector was born. Think back. Your earliest memories are probably not stories, but feelings. A room that felt too loud. A parent whose mood changed as quickly as the weather. A sibling who needed all the oxygen. A family culture where emotions were treated like weapons, like faults, like inconveniences. Your body learned to shrink before your mind learned what shrinking meant. When voices rose, your muscles tightened. When conflict broke out, your heartbeat slowed just enough to keep you unnoticed. Your breath went shallow. Your shoulders curled forward to reduce the surface area of you. Your gaze softened into a kind of neutrality that felt like self-erasure. This wasn't timidity, but rather a strategy. Your small body was trying to protect you from big emotions in the room of emotions that weren't yours but could still hurt you. And here's the neuroscience. Underneath it, when a child senses unpredictability, the vagus nerve triggers a shutdown response. Not fight, not flight, but freeze. A quieting of the entire system. A dimming of internal volumes so external chaos feels survivable. That free state became your first language. From the outside, they saw a calm child. A child who didn't cause trouble, a child who knew how to behave. Inside, you were holding your breath just to exist. People praised the stillness. They praised the obedience. They praised the quiet. They never asked why silence came so easily to you. They never wondered why your voice never fully arrived. They never suspected that silence wasn't a virtue, it was a fire alarm going off inside your body. Here's the dark twist. When silence keeps you safe long enough, it starts to feel like identity. You forget that you had a voice before you learned to mute it. You forget that your earliest instincts weren't silence, but expression, just like any other child. There was a time you spoke without fear, without scanning the room first, without calculating the emotional cost. But that voice lives underground now. It flickers faintly in the spaces where you almost speak, then swallow the words out of habit. This is what happens when the fire inside you learns to burn without smoke. Invisible, contained, self-consuming. The world sees your silence as peace, but you feel it as pressure. The pressure of unspoken truths pressing on the inside of your ribs. The pressure of opinions you never voice. The pressure of reactions you never let yourself have. Your body remembers the danger. Your mind mistakes it for personality, and you walk through adulthood speaking a language you never consciously chose. Silence became your safest language, but it also became your cage. There's a part of you deep, ancient, and instinctive. It never stopped burning. Your anger, your needs, your boundaries, your truth. All fire. But you grew up in an environment where fire wasn't allowed, where even a spark could trigger punishment, guilt, rejection, or emotional withdrawal. So you became the child who learned to hold burning coals in bare hands. Without flinching, you mastered the art of internalizing everything that should have moved outward. Anger, you swallowed it. Fear, you hid it. Disappointment, you minimized it. Pain, you rationalized it to protect the people who caused it. This is the most haunting part. Your system learned that feeling was more dangerous than numbing. That expression was more dangerous than erasing. That revelation was more dangerous than disappearing. So, the fire never stopped burning. It just stopped being visible. Here's what this looks like in the body. Your chest feels heavy, like something smoldering behind the sternum. Your jaw holds tension heat trapped in bone. Your stomach tightens for reasons you can't name. Your shoulders rise without permission, a subtle flinch from invisible flames. Your hands get cold because the fire has nowhere to go. Outside, you look calm. You look steady. You look unshakable. Inside, you are hosting an entire forest fire in silence. This is the kind of internal combustion the world never sees. They see your restraint, not your effort. They see your quiet, not your conflict. They see your patience, not your self-abandonment. When someone hurts you, you don't erupt. You implode. A collapse inward that feels like the ribs folding around your heart. A heat that goes nowhere, cooking the same self-blame over and over. People assume you don't get angry. They have no idea how much of your life has been spent trying not to burn anything down. And here's the psychological twist. When you suppress fire long enough, it stops trying to escape. It starts burning you instead. It becomes cynicism, self-silencing, numbness, and exhaustion. Resentment with no outlet. A quiet grief you can't put into words. The world praises your composure, but they never see the ashes inside you. You learned to be fireproof in a house that never learned how to handle heat. You learned to extinguish yourself so others wouldn't feel threatened. You learned to stay small so others could stay comfortable. But fire doesn't disappear. It waits. It whispers through tension, symptoms, and silence. It speaks in the moments you almost tell the truth and don't. It flickers in the person you could have become if you hadn't been taught to dim. Your silence is not empty. It's full. Full of the truths you never felt safe to name. Full of the flames you were never allowed to show. Full of the voice you keep trying to smother, so no one gets hurt. You were never too much. You were never dangerous. You were never the problem. You were just a child holding fire with no one to teach you how to let it burn without burning you. There's a moment, usually in childhood, when a sensitive child realizes something devastating. Being noticed is dangerous. Being invisible is safer. Not safe as uncomfortable but safe as unsurvivable. You didn't choose invisibility. It happened slowly, through 1,000 tiny interactions that taught your nervous system to disappear before anyone asked you to. Aside from a parent, a sharp glance, a comment that made your stomach drop, a moment when your excitement was met with irritation instead of warmth, a need dismissed, a feeling mocked, a cry ignored. Your system translated those moments into a lifelong instruction. Do not draw attention to yourself. Attention equals risk. So you mastered the art of taking up less space. You learned to sit quietly, to move softly, to observe instead of speak, to anticipate others' moods before acknowledging your own, to float at the edges of conversations, to become the calm center of chaos, even when it costs you pieces of yourself. Your silence became camouflage. Your stillness became a shield. Your invisibility became the currency you traded for emotional safety. Here's the internal experience of this reflex. A subtle freezing in the chest, a ripple of tension across the shoulders that says, "Don't draw attention." A mental fog that appears whenever you consider speaking up. A soft dissociation, barely noticeable, where you drift just a few inches outside yourself. Not fully gone, but not fully here. The outside world interprets this as, "You're so easygoing. You're such a good listener. You never complain. You're so chill." But inside, you're calculating, monitoring, scanning for the slightest shift in tone or expression, protecting yourself by erasing yourself before anyone else can do it for you. That's the real invisibility reflex. Not disappearance, but preemptive erasure, a way of muting your existence to avoid provoking someone else's discomfort. And here's the dark, painful twist. Once invisibility becomes a habit, people stop trying to see you. Not out of cruelty, but because you've become so good at lowering your presence that others assume you don't have needs, opinions, or emotional weight. They talk, and you absorb. They vent, and you nod. They confess, and you hold it quietly. They unravel, and you stay steady. You become everyone's safe space by never asking anyone to be yours. This is the tragic contradiction of the silent protector. You make others feel deeply seen, yet you walk away feeling unseen. Over time, invisibility becomes lonely. You begin to wonder if people like you or just the version of you that's easy for them. You start feeling replaceable, forgettable, peripheral, as though your presence matters only when it's convenient, and your silence is what makes relationships work. But here's the truth you've never said out loud. Your invisibility wasn't chosen, it was inherited, a survival instinct shaped by environments that punished your presence. You didn't want to be a ghost. You were trained to become one. And the cost of living unseen is that you eventually forget what it feels like to be fully alive. There's a strange talent you developed without ever meaning to. You can read people with frightening accuracy. Their tone, their microexpressions, their tension, their silence, and their anger before they feel it, their disappointment before they speak, their needs before they articulate them. You became fluent in everyone else's emotional language because your safety depended on it. When adults around you were unpredictable, your nervous system evolved into a hyper-tuned radar. Always scanning, always decoding, always preparing. You learned to speak emotion without speaking at all. And here's the irony. You became the emotional compass in your relationships, yet you lost your own true north. Inside, it feels like this. You can instantly sense when someone is hurt, but struggle to notice when you are. You can comfort others effortlessly, but freeze when someone asks what you need. You know how to hold space for another person's pain, but have no map for your own. You can articulate their feelings perfectly, while yours remain buried under layers of numbness. Your inner world became hazy, fogged out, muted beneath the volume of everyone else's emotions. Because when you grow up surviving by attuning to others, the cost is your own emotional identity. You learned to shapeshift, to adapt, to anticipate, to soften, to adjust your volume to keep the peace, to respond before people even realize what they're feeling. This made you indispensable to others, but it made you a stranger to yourself. Here's what this looks like on the outside. People come to you for advice. People confide in you. People say you're wise, soothing, and empathetic. People tell you you're safe, but the inside reality. You are exhausted. You are drained from carrying feelings that were never yours to hold. You are stretched thin by a skill you never meant to develop. A skill born from emotional survival, not emotional connection. The dark twist is this. Because you understand others so deeply, you assume they can understand you the same way. You think they should be able to see your pain without you having to voice it, but they can't. Not because they don't care, but because you've been translating for them your entire life, and you've never learned how to translate yourself. This is why you often feel disappointed in relationships. Why do you feel unseen, even with people who love you? Why do you feel misunderstood despite being so understanding? You've been speaking everyone else's emotional language and abandoning your own. Your silence became a dialect of care. Your self-erasure became a form of loyalty. Your emotional labor became invisible currency. But here's the part that hurts the most. People think your clarity about them means you're equally clear about you. They don't realize your emotional radar points outward, never inward. You know how to soothe the fire in other people, but you don't know how to soothe the fire inside yourself. Your childhood taught you to survive by feeling for others rather than for yourself. And until you reclaim your inner voice, you'll keep living in a world where you understand everyone except for the one person who needs your understanding the most. Every silent adult was once a child who learned one brutal lesson. Your emotions cost too much. Maybe no one said it directly. Maybe no one needed to. You felt it. You absorbed it. You internalized it like gospel. When you cried, someone sighed. When you asked for help, someone snapped. When you showed excitement, someone shut it down. When you expressed hurt, someone made it your fault. When you needed comfort, someone withdrew, was distracted, overwhelmed, or absent. Children don't interpret behavior. They personalize it. They think, if my feelings upset them, my feelings must be wrong. If my needs anger them, my needs must be too much. If my voice triggers consequences, it's safer not to speak. And so the script is written, a quiet manifesto carved into the developing nervous system. Do not burden. Do not need. Do not feel loud. This script becomes your operating system, a background program running every social interaction, every relationship, every conflict. Here's how it feels inside the body. A sudden tightness when you want to express disappointment, a constriction in the throat when someone asks what you need, a sinking feeling in the stomach when you feel misunderstood, a desire to disappear when emotions rise too quickly, a numbness that sweeps in like a cold tide whenever you get too close to vulnerability. Your body isn't betraying you, it's protecting you, using outdated instructions written in childhood. Outside, the world sees a calm presence, a low-drama adult, someone who never asks for anything. Inside, you're running constant emotional risk calculations. Will this make them uncomfortable? Will they think I'm too much? Is it safer to stay quiet? Should I let it go? You always let it go. Here's the dark twist. When your feelings were framed as burdens, you learned to carry everyone else's instead. You became the emotional container for the room, the steady one, the reliable one, the one who absorbs tension like a sponge. But the cost. You stopped expecting others to carry anything for you. You learned self-sufficiency as a trauma reflex, not a personality trait. Your childhood script doesn't stay in childhood. It grows up with you. It shapes your relationships. It shapes your self-worth. It shapes the voice you no longer trust. Silence becomes second nature, not because you lack words, but because your body believes speaking them will break something you're still trying to hold together. You aren't bad at communicating. You're trained to minimize your impact. You're trained to replace honesty with harmony. You're trained to keep the peace, even when it costs your inner peace. But here's the truth. Beneath the silence, your feelings were never the problem. Your voice was never too much. Your needs were never dangerous. You were simply raised in an environment unequipped to hold what was completely human about you. And the child who learned to hide their emotions, it is still hiding inside the adult who thinks silence is safer. There comes a moment. Quiet, disorienting. When you realize something is missing inside you. Not broken, not ruined. Just gone. A softness you once had. A voice you barely remember. A sense of aliveness that feels distant, like someone else's memory. This is the grief of the lost self. Kierkegaard said, "The most painful state of being is remembering the future. A future you were supposed to grow into before silence took its place." Jung warned, "The unlived life within us is a force that aches when ignored. A force you feel in those quiet hours when the world finally stops asking anything of you. It's that ache you feel when life feels muted. Relationships feel one-sided. Your desires feel blurry. Your voice feels inaccessible. And you sense, with dull precision, that you've lived more as an observer than a participant. This grief isn't loud. It's slow. It's deep. It's the sadness of realizing you've been translating yourself out of your own life. Silence protected you, but it also erased you, and the patterns show up everywhere, especially in adulthood. Here are 7 hidden adult patterns born from a childhood where silence was safer. Pattern 1. The I am fine reflex. You say I'm fine automatically, before you even check, before you even breathe. Pattern 2. The vanishing boundary. When someone oversteps, you feel your stomach tightens, your throat constricts, but you don't speak. Not out of weakness, but conditioning. Pattern 3. Emotional echoing. When someone shares their feelings, you mirror back understanding flawlessly. But when it's your turn, your mind goes blank. Your nervous system freezes. Pattern 4. The invisible laborer. You predict needs before they're spoken. You anticipate moods. You manage emotional atmospheres like a silent engineer. Pattern 5. The relationship shapeshifter. You adjust your personality depending on who you're with. Not to manipulate, but to minimize friction. To keep the peace. Pattern 6. Intimacy that stops at the surface. You can connect deeply with others as long as the focus stays on them, but when the spotlight turns your way, your body locks up. Pattern 7. The quiet resentment cycle. You give without being asked. You support without receiving. You understand without being understood. And over time, your silence calcifies into resentment. These patterns aren't flaws. They're survival mechanisms that have gone past their expiration date. You've survived a lifetime of silence. You've navigated rooms, relationships, and roles that demanded your disappearance. You've muted your voice so long that you forgot the sound of it. You've carried other people's weight because no one carried yours. But now, there's a different way. You are allowed to exist fully, not partially, not quietly. Not only when it's safe, you are allowed to speak your truth, even if it feels risky, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You are allowed to love fiercely, and to say no without guilt, and to let your boundaries guide your presence, and to step back from those who cannot meet you halfway. You are allowed to take up space, to let your fire burn without shame, to let your needs matter as much as anyone else's, to inhabit your body with awareness, curiosity, and care. Because the truth is simple. Silence protected you once, but it was never meant to define you. Your voice, your fire, your presence. We're always meant to return. This is the moment where the child and the adult meet. The part of you who learned to vanish, and the part of you who now chooses to appear, and in that meeting, there's a kind of quiet revolution. A reclaiming of life that was never fully yours to begin with. And a gentle rewriting of the rules that kept you small. Every small act of speaking, choosing, and boundary setting, it is a reclamation. Every step toward self-led living is a soft, persistent rebellion against the script of self. Every time you honor your own fire, you prove to yourself that safety doesn't require disappearance. And in this reclamation, you realize love doesn't require silence. Presence doesn't require invisibility, and connection doesn't require abandoning yourself. You've come this far. You've walked through the fire of your own nervous system. You've watched silence protect and harm you in equal measure. You've traced the script that kept you small. You've glimpsed the life of someone who can love without disappearing. And now, it's time to take the next step, not a giant leap, not a sudden transformation, but small, deliberate steps every day that remind you. You are allowed. You are visible. You are worthy. Every pause where you breathe before saying yes or no. Every boundary you set without apology. Every micro-truth you speak in the safety of your own reflection. Every moment you honor your inner child and shadow simultaneously. These small acts accumulate into something profound. A life that is self-led. A heart that is open but protected. A voice that speaks without fear. A presence that exists fully, without compromise. You can be the one who shows up for others without erasing yourself in the process. You can offer love without depletion. You can witness without surrendering. You can be human in a way that the world will recognize, but never control. If you want more content that goes this deep into the psychology behind your patterns and the quiet contracts you never knew you signed, like and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't have to walk this kind of inner work alone. The goal is not to fix you. The goal is to finally let you be whole.